A shimmering green silk dress glowed under stage lights, but in her suitcase, it was stained with blood. Tammi Terrell. The voice that moved the world with Ain't No Mountain High Enough was Motown's radiant doll pulled by strings, flashing smiles, hitting high notes. But behind the glamour were scars, beatings from James Brown, a motorcycle helmet from David Ruffin, and a silent brain tumor that killed her at 24. Why did Motown hide her illness, pushing her onto stages when she weighed just 92 pounds? Were those threatening letters demanding she stop singing real? And what was the big secret Tammi kept about the label? Her mother believed Motown drained her daughter dry. But was the truth buried in that cold hospital room? Join me as we step into Tammi's story, where her voice blended with tears, to uncover what truly snuffed out the fire of this dazzling Philly girl. Chapter 1. A natural talent and a dream stained with blood. That green silk dress, blood-soaked and stuffed in a suitcase, lay silent at the bottom of a closet. No one mentioned it, no one asked. But that was when Tammi Terrell's dream began to bleed. Philadelphia, 1945. The smell of roasted coffee mixed with jazz from street corners. Thomasina Montgomery Tammi was born on April 29th in a middle-class family. Her father, Thomas, a barber and local politician, took her everywhere. Her mother, Jenny, a failed actress, was often hospitalized for depression. Tammi, a radiant child, sang in church at 3, her fingers gliding over the piano, dreaming of stardom. The green silk dress she wore at school performances sparkled like a promise. But at 11, tragedy struck. Walking home from a teen club, 3 young men attacked and raped her. Tammi went to the police herself. But the case was dismissed. No justice for a black girl. A classmate recalled Tammi was the brightest in class. But after that, she grew quiet, her eyes distant. By 13, she rebelled, smoking, sneaking out, called a woman child for her mature look. At 15, Luther Dixon discovered her, signing her to Scepter Wand Records as Tammi Montgomery. She recorded If You See Bill, the green silk dress hugging her on stage, in 1963. Her mother introduced her to James Brown. Tammi, 18, stepped eagerly into the studio, dress fluttering, recording I Cried, which hit number 99 on the Billboard Hot 100. But Brown soon showed his true colors. A tour member said he controlled her, got mad when she left the stage early. Another whispered Tammi cried all night, but the next morning she sang like nothing happened. Then the nightmare came. Brown beat Tammi bloody for leaving a show early, her screams echoing backstage. The green silk dress, once shimmering, was now blood-stained, stuffed into a suitcase as she fled home. A tour member said she got a threatening letter: leave Brown or pay the price. Tammi longed for love, but Brown made her feel like a tool. Her parents backed her dreams but couldn't shield her from cruelty. The dress, never worn again, marked a dream stained with blood. Did Brown's beatings awaken something dark in Tammi? A seed of tragedy waiting to sprout? A seed that, soon enough, would bloom on Motown's stage, brilliant and dangerous? Chapter 2. Motown's glamour and the shadows behind it. When Tammi sang the first line of Ain't No Mountain High Enough, she wrote a new page in music history, but also took steps toward her own grave. On April 29, 1965, her 20th birthday, Tammi Terrell stepped into Hitsville studio in Detroit, where cigarette smoke mingled with the clink of coffee cups. Berry Gordy, Motown's mogul, signed her, changing her name from Tammi Montgomery to Tammi Terrell, a name that rang like a star. But Tammi wasn't just a star. She was a doll, positioned perfectly for the camera, hitting every note, flashing every smile. Her first single, I Can't Believe You Love Me, climbed the R&B top 40, her voice like fire on silk. Come On and See Me followed, leaving audiences restless. The real magic came in 1967 when Gordy paired her with Marvin Gaye. Marvin, shy and hesitant at the mic, eyes downcast. Tammi, with a radiant smile, pulled him close, saying, "Just sing with me, Marvin." Their first take of Ain't No Mountain High Enough wasn't acting. They locked eyes, and it flowed like a stream. The engineer stood stunned. They nailed it in one take. Marvin later said, "I never heard anyone sing like Tammi, like she put her whole heart in every note." The song hit number 19 on the Billboard Hot 100, number 3 on R&B, and was honored in the Grammy Hall of Fame in 1999. Their album United sold over 1 million copies, with hits like Your Precious Love number 5 pop, Ain't Nothing Like the Real Thing number 1 R&B, and You're All I Need to Get By number 1 R&B, voted number 1 R&B duo in 1970. Their blended voices drove TV and stage audiences wild. But the glamour came at a cost. Motown demanded perfection, endless shows, grueling tours, and constant smiles. Tammi was their doll, pulled by strings to sing, dance, and shine. She hid migraines, swallowing aspirin to keep going, afraid of losing her spot. A technician saw her clutch her head between takes, face pale, but she just smiled. "I'm fine." The pressure was crushing record. Tour, smile, repeat. An assistant recalled Tammi said someone was watching her outside Hitsville, a shadow in the dark alley. But Marvin said Tammi worries too much, always overthinking. Who was right? Who misremembered, or was someone hiding something? Her sister Ludi later said Tammi felt like a doll on strings, pulled by Motown's demands. Berry Gordy paid hospital bills later, but did he know she was suffering early on? Her parents were proud, but didn't see the price she paid. Tammi sang like there was no tomorrow, maybe. Deep down, she knew there weren't many tomorrows left. Chapter 3. When Love Was a Knife Stabbing Tammi. The motorcycle helmet hit the floor, smeared with blood. Tammi collapsed in the living room, head throbbing, breath ragged. That's how love began, with David Ruffin. Flashback to 1966. Tammi touring with the Temptations, stage lights as bright as her dreams. David Ruffin, the charismatic lead singer, entered her life with a charming smile and a gleaming limo. He gave her a diamond ring, whispering sweet words that made her heart flutter. Women threw bras at Ruffin when he sang My Girl. But Tammi, the fierce Philly girl, saw him as a challenge. They moved in together, and he proposed. Tammi announced their engagement on stage, the crowd roaring, her smile brighter than the lights. A friend said Tammi glowed like the world was hers. But the love story cracked fast. Act 1. Ruffin hit Tammi with a motorcycle helmet, knocking her down, her headaches exploding like hammer strikes. She tried to stand, but her vision blurred. A tour member whispered I saw blood in her hair, but she smiled and said, "I'm fine." Act 2. Another night. Ruffin struck her with a steel chair, leaving bruises on her arm. Marvin Gaye saw, his eyes worried, but Tammi shook her head, hiding the pain. Act 3. Ruffin abused her beloved dog, beating it in front of her to terrorize her mind. Tammi trembled, cradling the animal, tears falling silently. A close friend swore she cried for hours but stayed because she feared Ruffin. The truth broke when Tammi learned Ruffin was married, with 3 kids and a pregnant mistress in Detroit. A Temptations member denied it, calling Tammi a dreamer, always exaggerating. But her friend countered, "I saw blood on her shirt. Ruffin wasn't a fantasy." Who was blurring the truth, Tammi? Torn. Confided in a late-night call, "I know a big secret about Ruffin. It could ruin us both. Motown won't forgive anyone." She said no more, her voice shaking, as if afraid of being overheard. Marvin Gaye was her refuge. In the studio, he was gentle like a brother, pulling her from darkness. They laughed, teased, their voices blending like fate. Marvin called her his best friend, the only one who understood Motown's pressures. But the label did nothing to stop Ruffin, though everyone knew. Band members saw bruises but stayed silent. Executives looked away. Tammi's mother tried to comfort her from afar, but illness left her helpless. Tammi craved love, but Ruffin's blows made her feel unworthy. Those wounds, physical and emotional, may have awakened an invisible enemy. That enemy, perhaps the tumor, or something Ruffin left in her body and mind. And no one, not even Marvin, could stop it. Chapter 4. A Hidden Illness. What was the real motive? She turned to Marvin. One more note, one more step, but Tammi's knees buckled. Stage lights burned into her pale, expressionless face. Marvin shouted, catching her. The crowd clapped, thinking it was a dramatic finale. On October 14th, 1967, at Hampton Sydney College. Virginia. Tammi Terrell collapsed into Marvin Gaye's arms during Your Precious Love. The audience thought it was part of the act, but Marvin knew something was wrong. At Philadelphia's Graduate Hospital, doctors found a malignant brain tumor the size of an almond on the right side of her brain. Tammi, just 22, faced a death sentence. She underwent her first surgery in January 1968 and briefly recovered. She returned to the studio, coffee and cigarette smoke thick in the air, recording Ain't Nothing Like the Real Thing and You're All I Need to Get By. Both hit #1 on R&B, her voice still a fierce flame. But the tumor didn't relent. From 1968 to 1970, Tammi endured 8 surgeries, each stealing more of her strength. She gripped studio chairs, hiding pain, her smile masking exhaustion. Motown kept her illness secret. They released her solo album Irresistible in 1969, using old recordings because Tammi was too weak to promote it. Then came the darker secret of the duet album Easy. Valerie Simpson, a singer-songwriter with a voice like Tammi's, was brought in to record in her place. No one was told. The album launched under Marvin and Tammy's names, her radiant image on the cover, though she couldn't rise from her hospital bed. Fans didn't know. Marvin later called it Berry Gordy's money-making scheme. Motown went further. A December 1968 article, sent by the label to the press, claimed Tammi was busy touring, no time for a new music video. In truth, she was hospitalized, recovering from her 3rd surgery, her mind foggy, her body failing. A studio technician said Tammi saw someone lurking outside Hitsville, a vague figure in a dark alley. She whispered to a friend, "They're watching me." But Motown told her to rest. "Don't worry." A nurse recalled a haunting moment. Tammi lay in bed, head shaved, hands trembling as she clutched Marvin. "I'm not afraid to die," she whispered faintly. "But I'm afraid I'll be forgotten like I never existed." Her family, especially Jenny, trusted Motown to care for her, but they didn't see the truth. Tammi sang to preserve her legacy, but her body was betraying her. She sang, recorded, smiled for cameras while her brain collapsed. Maybe Motown thought they were protecting Tammy's image, or maybe they were protecting something else. Chapter 5. The Final Day's Loneliness Amid Glory. "I used to hear her hit the highest notes. Now, I only hear her tiny breaths," Marvin Gaye said, choking up, his eyes misty as he looked at Tammi. By early 1970, Tammi Terrell was a shadow of herself, in a wheelchair at her Philadelphia home. She'd lost her vision, her hair, her body down to 92 pounds, light as a leaf. Her room was quiet, only the soft spin of a record playing her old voice. Marvin visited often, bringing albums, trying to make her laugh with Hitsville stories. He held her hand, voice shaking as he recalled their duets. But Tammy's eyes seemed to stare into nothing. Her mother, Jenny, cared for her tirelessly. But anger at Motown simmered. She believed the label abandoned her daughter, letting her waste away in darkness. A spark flared at the Apollo Theater in late 1969. Marvin was performing when he spotted Tammi in the crowd, frail but smiling, a scarf hiding her bald head. He ran down, pulled her on stage. The room fell silent. No one thought she could sing. But Tammi stood, legs trembling. The first line of You're All I Need to Get By came out hoarse, faint then grew stronger, full of tears. Her voice blended with Marvin's, like time rewound. The crowd rose, clapping wildly. Tammi smiled, for the last time, her eyes shining like the Philly girl she once was. Tammi was engaged to Dr. Ernie Garrett, her doctor, who brought a glimmer of hope in her dark days. But darkness overwhelmed. A nurse said during a rainy night, Tammi whispered to a friend over the phone, "I know something they don't want me to say." When pressed, she turned away, shaking her head. "I don't want anyone else hurt." That secret, tied to Motown, weighed like a stone in her heart. Jenny grew angrier, believing Motown not only abandoned Tammi but exploited her to the end. A friend said Tammi felt like a doll on strings, even when she had no strength left. Tammi found solace in Marvin and Ernie, but Motown's neglect left her lonely. She wanted to be remembered, but her glory was now a memory. She lay in that quiet room, her breaths fading, as if knowing the stage lights were gone forever, if Motown truly drained her, as Jenny believed. Would anyone speak up? Or would the truth die with her in that silent room? Chapter 6. The Collapse, Death, and Whispers. In her final rainy night before slipping into a coma, Tammi lay in her hospital bed, whispering to a nurse, "If they tell my story, I just hope they tell it true." After her 8th surgery in January 1970, Tammi Terrell fell into a coma. She died on March 16th, 1970, at Graduate Hospital in Philadelphia, 1 month shy of her 25th birthday. The official cause was brain tumor complications. Her funeral at Jane's Methodist Church was steeped in tears. Marvin delivered the eulogy. Voice breaking as "You're All I Need to Get By" played softly. She fell on stage, lights burning into her face. Now, in the church, candles replaced spotlights, but the silence was the same. Jenny barred most of Motown from attending, except Marvin, whom she called her daughter's only true friend. Questions linger. Dr. Richard Harner said the tumor was unrelated to trauma, but Jenny snapped her head hurt every time she was hit. Don't tell me I don't know. Some speculated Ruffin's beatings worsened her condition, though no proof exists. A Reddit post mentioned a box of Tammy's poems, writing of pain no one saw. Her family went to the hospital for her belongings rings, photos, papers, but they were gone. The hospital said they were returned. The family said they got nothing. No one knows when they vanished or if they were ever found. A nurse said the night before her death, Tammi asked to hear "Ain't No Mountain High Enough." She cried when it ended, as if knowing it was her last time. Her sister Ludi, 19, collapsed at the funeral, needing to be carried out. Tammi feared being forgotten, but her early death stole her chance to tell her own story. Her final whispers about truth. About Motown, did they reveal something we don't know? Conclusion: an unquenchable flame, legacy, and mysteries. Tammi Terrell wasn't just a voice. She was a flame burning bright through pain. Her duets with Marvin Gaye, "Ain't No Mountain High Enough," "You're All I Need to Get By" still echo, honored in the Grammy Hall of Fame in 1999. Her death sent Marvin into depression, but inspired his 1971 masterpiece, "What's Going On?", tackling war and injustice. In 2018, Tammi was honored at the Memphis Soul Music Museum, with Alicia Keys and Mary J. Blige calling her an inspiration. Tammy's story is a lesson in resilience. Raped at 11, abused by James Brown and David Ruffin, battling a brain tumor, she still sang with her whole heart. She reminds us talent can shine in darkness, but warns of fame's cost, Motown's pressures. Silence around abuse, and loneliness as her illness was hidden. She was Philly's radiant girl, but the industry and abusers took too much. Yet mysteries remain. Were the threatening letters telling Tammi to leave Brown or stop performing real? Or just rumors? The big secret she kept, was it about Ruffin or someone behind him? Did Motown hide her illness to protect her image or their profits? And her box of poems, writing of pain no one saw, was it lost or hidden? A nurse said when "Ain't No Mountain High Enough" ended, Tammi cried, not from sadness, but because she knew it was her last. We may never know the full truth, but these questions make us wonder, did Motown drain Tammi? Ignoring her illness to keep her star shining, did Ruffin's blows worsen her condition? As her mother believed, or was tragedy her fate? I invite you to honor Tammi with a flower emoji in the comments. Share #TammiTerrellLegacy and join the discussion. Who should play Tammi in a biopic? Taraji P. Henson or Kat Graham? Read My Sister Tommy by Ludi Montgomery to learn more. Tammi sang "You're All I Need to Get By," but in her final moments, no one truly stood by her except another voice, and a legacy still shadowed by unanswered questions.